Hello there, people out there in the internet, all over the world, hopefully. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is another live stream, streaming live from HOFA Studio. My name is Chris. I'm an audio engineer and studio manager at HOFA. I also do some tutoring and stuff. So whoever does a course in audio engineering at HOFA-College might already know me. If not so, my name is Chris, as already said. I do a lot of recording, mixing and mastering for a living. That's what I do, and as I do quite a lot of mastering actually nowadays, someone asked me to do a little workshop, talk a little bit about digital mastering, like modern digital mastering approaches. And that is what we're going to do today. So hopefully you're all interested. I can see the live chat out there on YouTube. Real quick, for our course today, we'll have 1 hour live on YouTube. This is what we're doing now. So we get started soon, so we don't lose any time unnecessarily. Well, I have the live chat right in front of me, so please feel free to ask any questions if anything goes too fast or if I missed anything or whatever. And I will also ask you some questions, I think, if we can manage to do that as well. After the first hour live on YouTube, we will have a short break, roughly half an hour usually. So after that, half an hour break, we'll be switching over to the online campus, the HOFA online campus. So whoever of you has an account there, he or she has 30 minutes of a break after the first hour to head over to oc.hofa-college.com, I think it is, log in and visit the rest of our live stream. But for every one of you out there, we will have 1 hour for free. Whoops, there was a little unnecessary countdown there. Ignore that, please. All right, let's get started into it. We'll talk about mastering today. It's called Masterclass of Digital Mastering. We will not exclusively talk about digital techniques, but of course, mainly we'll do that. I want to start from the scratch, basically. And for those of you who are already a little bit experienced in mastering your own music or music from colleagues or friends or whatever, bear with me, stick with me, and we will see quite quickly that there might be some little holes you have missed in your own career or something like that. For all your super professional mastering engineer out there with multiple years of experience, that's probably not a course for you because I'm starting from the scratch here. For everyone else, let's get into it. Let's start with the question, what is mastering? Seems quite simple, actually, but it's a very, very important question because above all, when doing, doesn't matter what actually, when doing anything professional or professionally on a professional level or even working for clients or something like that, we will always have the problem of a fixed goal. So let's start simple maybe. For me, mastering is, first of all, make it better than it was before. That is just one part of it, but it is actually a huge part, I think, especially when working for clients or something like that over the internet. People don't necessarily know you in person. People don't, like your clients don't. And they would just send files over and maybe some cash through PayPal or whatever. And they will have to trust you with whatever you do. Well, actually, they don't have a proof before they tested it out, right? So that's actually why many mastering engineers and many mastering studios out there offer a free test mastering. That's why, basically, because people have to trust you. And above all, if there might be some cases, they are quite rare nowadays, especially nowadays, where many unexperienced or like electronically or technically unexperienced musicians produce their music at home or in little band-owned production rooms or whatever. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't want to say that at all. It's just that you don't necessarily have like very good acoustics there, or maybe you don't even have very good speakers or something like that. So you are not necessarily in the position to hear the very details of your production now or mix until it gets to mastering. And that gets me to my second point, is well, quality control, isn't it? So, first of all, let's make music better than it is before. That's not like tuning the bass line, tuning the vocal, or giving some, musical input into the string arrangement or whatever. It's more like we have a fixed mix. It's hopefully whatever the production team, whoever that is, production team, the band, the artist, the producers, engineers, and so on and so forth. Maybe a label is involved or something like that. All these parties agreed on this mix that is sent to the mastering engineer. And, our goal is not to make it sound hugely different and turn it into something completely different than it was before, because, well, as I said, everyone already agreed on the mix and how it sounds. Everyone likes the production as it is, so don't turn it into something completely else. And but still, we want to make it better than before. How shall we do that? Well, we have a couple of tools. We will get to know some of them later. But first of all, we will look out for some resonances, maybe for some disbalances, maybe in the stereo field, something like that. Maybe we see some weird balances and frequency spectrum or something like that. Like we can repair. And sometimes it is also necessary. Well, actually, not that seldom. It is necessary to go back to the mixing stage for a little change there, because you might find that, I don't know, for example, the bass drum triggers your compressor weirdly in some way, and to have a better mastering result, you can tell after the first mastering revision or something like that. You can send back and try it with that mix, and after that, the production team decides together with the mastering engineer to go back into the mixing stage, change a little bit there. It's usually not much. It's right, like, well, let's do a dB there, or something like that. And after that, you will get send a fresh mix and, swap that out. In mastering, do the same thing again, basically, or maybe with minor changes. And there you have it. So it's quality control. As a mastering engineer, generally speaking, or as an engineer, no matter in what stage of the music production you are in, but especially as a mastering engineer, you are the last stage where the piece of music, whatever it is, or I don't know, might also be an audiobook or some film or whatever, but you're the last audio person, that thing goes through. So you will have to make sure that there are no bigger issues whatsoever. So that might mean, of course, you have to work in the realm of the client you're in. That means if you're working on a very, very tight budget for some hobby producer or upcoming artist, self-producing artist or whatever, you are heavily dependent on whatever they send you. So if the mix is not good at all, if the song is not good at all, you can't really change that much. But of course, you can be the professional guy or girl in the whole process for the last quality control check, and you can give a couple of tips or tricks at least to tell the client what is going on here and where he or she might have to look at again. Okay, so make it better than before, and make sure the quality control thing is really done on your stage. That means, especially mastering, well, generally speaking, you should always do that, but especially mastering, it's so crucial that you very, very precisely watch over every single export you do. That means I usually, when I export the final mix or master file, I will always, I repeat, always, in every single case, I will send that through an analyzing tool like the HOFA IQ analyzer. We'll have a look at that. There are some others on the market, but that's one of the best I know. So, but whatever you want to use, obviously. You should really do that, because sometimes you can miss something, even on very good acoustics and very good loudspeakers and so on. Sometimes you miss something going on at 22 hertz or whatever that might lead to problems on some other loudspeaker systems. Not just frequency-wise, that's also phase-wise and so on. And sometimes you will have even just a rendering bug. It's not that seldom, even nowadays, that plugins do mistakes, or expensive hardware does mistakes as well. So it's not just the human component. There's obviously the wrongest one usually, but also the technology we're using does make mistakes from time to time, and we will have to check every single file. So listen to it on 1, 2, 3 different levels, and on 1, 2, 3 different systems before you send it out to your customer or to your DSP or to your distributor or whatever. Be completely sure about that you double and triple checked everything you will send out at anyone. I've seen the weirdest stuff, really. And it's always, in 99% of the cases, everything goes as planned. It's all right. Of course, only if you are working professionally through the whole thing. But let me say that again, it's so heavily about quality control and mastering. So I already said you are the last checkpoint and the last, let's say, feedback supervisor, whatever. You provide some feedback about the mix in general, and maybe if you have a great idea that might fit the music sonically or whatever, you can sometimes just talk to the production team and say, well, have you ever thought about that? I think this reminds me of artist blah blah blah, and they do something like that, which I think might be a very good fit for this piece as well. Have you ever thought about that? Of course, you are not the producer, you are not the mixing engineer, not the artist, obviously, and hopefully, because those should actually be different persons if doing it professionally. It's called teamwork, right? And of course, you can also compensate for what I would call operational blindness, maybe. What I mean with that is artists sometimes know their song completely in and out, and they've performed it in thousands of different variations and arrangements and whatever, and so on and so forth. And the producer as well, maybe they might be involved in the project and have listened to this song for thousands and thousands of times over the last couple of months or something. So might be the case that people are just too involved in the product to really be able to have a more or less objective opinion on it. So usually as a mastering engineer, you listen to the piece the first time, and it's already, as I said before, it's already everyone in the production, they already agreed on this product as the final product, right? So you have a really good shape usually, and of the whole thing, and you listen to it the first time very closely on some speakers or headphones or whatever you have that you know really, really well. So you can check that and A/B that maybe to some references or whatever, and you have the best possibility to give a very objective feedback on it because you listen to it for the first time, right? So that's another point. All those actually arguments I just said, they are all very good points for always outsourcing the mastering process. Even though I myself, I say I do quite a lot of mastering for clients and for friends as well, and so on. And I try to avoid mastering my own mixes and productions because I sometimes am too close to the product. That second pair of ears or a third or whatever pair of ears in another room and another speaker, maybe they listen to it a little differently than you do after listening to the song for 1,000 times, right? Okay. What else shall we do in mastering? We have quite a couple of technical aspects, but let's stick to the more musical and dramaturgical first. Loudness, very important. We will talk a lot about loudness today because I think there are quite a lot of misconceptions out there, or rumors, or some weird forum knowledge that really pisses me off, to be honest, quite frankly, because there are so many heavy misconceptions and people share them. That's just, I guess that's just the thing of our age nowadays. We will talk a lot about mastering for a certain loudness format. What I mean by that is you may have heard of loudness normalization going on Spotify, DSPs, whatever. And sometimes you have standards to confirm to, like, to obey, basically, like when working for TV, for film music. Okay, something like EBU, R128, or ATSC, or how all those loudness standards are called. We will have a look at them later, but I wanna talk a lot about how to obey to those norms correctly today, and when it. And in which cases we are not actually talking about standards at all, but just about normalization standards, which is something completely different, actually, that you don't necessarily have to obey to. You know what I mean? If you don't, we will talk about that later. So you, as a mastering engineer, are the person who gets the last creative step, gets to do the last creative step in the music production or whatever audio production you have. So you will have to decide on a certain loudness level, on a certain data format, on a certain resolution, and you will also have to make sure it's compatible, like technically compatible with whatever deliverable format you have to deliver. Obviously, because you're the last one to touch it. And also the, I'd say, musical or sonical, sonic translatability, I'd call it. So what I mean by that is how your mix or your final master translate to various listening situations. That might be how different translates your mix when listening in the car compared to your AirPods, compared to your MacBook, compared to your studio speakers, compared to, I don't know, cinema or whatever. Obviously, those are all quite different systems, so whatever you put at it, it will always sound different than one from the other, obviously, but your goal as a mastering engineer is always to make the mix perform as as desired on these couple of platforms and situations. The same is also true for platforms. I just said that. You might have to take certain precautions or certain tricks and so on to make sure your master files convert properly and as desired to AAC codecs or streaming platforms or whatever your label is going to do with it. Okay, and also before we stick to the another very important musical task is the sequence. So the right order of songs, which is quite easy, one might say, but you will have to, when mastering an album or EP, obviously this is not true for a single song or something like that. Then you might have to think about in what playlist it is placed and so on. But when working on an album or an EP or something like that, you will have to make bloody sure that the songs are not like all over the place sonically and loudness wise and so on. You will want to bring it to a certain coherence in across that whole album, right? So it will have your goal is to have a coherent sonic vision for the whole release. So you could also say that not just a song or a single piece has its own dramaturgy, but also the whole album has, you know. So you might actually, and I do that quite often, frankly. I pick certain different tools and takes different, sometimes very different decisions based on the context of the album, whether it's the first song or the third song, whether there's a really loud or really fast or really slow or really calm song before and after the song I'm working on currently. You know, so all that dramaturgy and consistency and coherence you want to keep in mind, and you're working on a dramatic piece in the end, which is the whole album. And you're actually usually the first one to do that in the whole production process, right? Because before, when talking about music, we usually stick to music. That's a little easier than talking about all kinds of audio and audiovisual pieces. When talking about music, usually everyone before you works on a single piece and then on another. Usually they have worked on multiple pieces on the same time, obviously, but they see every song in kind of a micro perspective, right? You just try to do something within that song, and when each of the 10, 12, 20 whatever songs is done and finished and mixed, you will put that into your sequence in mastering, and you will be more or less the first one to ever hear it in that exact sequence, and you will really have to make some decisions about pause lengths between those pieces, maybe crossovers or whatever, and loudness, sonical changes through across the whole album and so on and so forth. And of course, as I already said, the technical aspects like formats, metadata, so PQ flags in case of DDP images for CD or whatever. Or maybe, you would have to make the proper format so some other guy or girl can cut it on a vinyl lathe or whatever you do, or maybe you even do it yourself. Who knows? That's basically what is mastering and what are our goals. I hope that wasn't too boring for you, but I think it's very helpful to start up with that, to define what we want to do and what we don't want to do. Okay, let's start with the requirements, the technical ones, and maybe even the personal ones, right? By the way, I'll have a quick zip here for my cup of tea. I have the live chat from YouTube right in front of me, so please put your questions in there. I will try to answer them. And of course, you can also throw anything in there if I forget anything or whatever. Delicious. All right, let's talk about the requirements for mastering. What do you need? Well, first of all, you need a as perfect as it can be listening position. That is crucial. Every engineer, every producer, whatever, especially as an engineer, you have to be able to listen to the music as precisely as possible. Okay. The thing is, you can only hear and solve those problems, basically, you can only solve those problems that you're able to hear. And if your speakers are that crappy, or if your room acoustics are that crappy, that all of those problems might get masked or whatever, or masked by noise or by room resonances or whatever, you will not be able to hear those, and also so you can't solve them, right? And I think that's quite obvious. It's like doing the quality control on the I don't know, on the on a film cut or whatever, a film edit. You won't be able to do that if you can't see properly, right? It's the same with music. So you have to be able to have a very nice listening position, some trained ears, of course. Most of this job is basically experience and confidence and gut feel more often than not, to be honest. But it has a lot to do with your listening environment and your experience in that specific listening environment. What I mean by that is I always refuse when someone asks me, and that happens quite often, frankly, that people want me to master a song or finish a mix. I even refuse that usually. In some place I don't know, or I don't like personally, which can mean there might be some great speakers and some great room acoustics, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I personally like those speakers and that room acoustics. You know what I mean? In case of room acoustics, it's good is good, basically. Of course, it has something to do with taste. Some like it more deadened, and some like it a little brighter and bigger, and so on. But basically, when it comes to room acoustics, it's not that hard. A good room is a good room, in acoustic wise. But when it comes to amps and speakers, there is a lot of experience with that specific material involved. For example, especially when it comes to tweeters, you know, the ones, the tiny little speakers in your monitors that are working on the high end. They have, some of them are really, really pointy and sharp, and if you used to that, that's great. And if you change to another monitor, it can be a great monitor. Others are doing a great job on it and highly professional and so on, but you might not like it that much, and everything seems to be dull on those speakers, and you will more or less you can avoid to tune in too much of the high end because you're not used to that specific system. All right, so it has to do with taste. It has and it has even more to do with whatever you are used to. There is a question by Devron. Let's see. Is there a way to find out if my studio is good enough to start with a master? Well, first of all, we are now actually talking about the various requirements you need. But if you're talking about the studio, I suppose you're mainly talking about the room acoustics and your speakers setup. And to be honest, as I said before, there is taste in room acoustics. I don't want to deny that at all. But in the end, most of it is physics. So it's basically only physics. So you can measure all that. And if you're not sure how to deal with room acoustics, get some professional, someone experienced in your team. Let them, I don't know, help remotely, either remotely or even better is when they come on site. Of course, do some measurements, maybe do some calculations, and help you with the room acoustics, because that is the most crucial part, in my opinion. Even the best speakers on earth, whatever that product means for you, can be placed in a bad room, and you won't be able to hear it all what it is doing. So, is there a way to find out if my studio is good enough to start with a master? watch room acoustics first, and after that choose some speakers and listen a lot. And after that, you will hopefully, with a little bit of experience and maybe just a few months, you will see if that setup works for you. If you feel confident, if you really have the feeling to be able to listen to all the details and so on. I don't know you, so Ron, if you're a beginner in audio engineering, quite frankly, I'd not say you are experienced enough to start with a master in the first place, but of course you should be training it by now. So get started with it, and you will see how your results translate, and ask others. Do some online research on those topics, some courses or whatever, and get some feedback by professionals and experienced persons, and you will see if you just do a master and you feel confident by it, and if you like it 3 months after that, and if your client likes it, you've done a great job, I think. So you will only see if it's good enough, if you're good enough, if you do it. Synonym producer, or produced by Synonym or whatever, asks, is it a good idea to master with headphones? And I think it is actually, but not exclusively. I'd say, obviously there are different opinions on this. I know many mastering engineers don't use headphones at all, and they certainly have their points. Others mainly work on headphones and rarely use speakers, and they might have some points too. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I always do both. I start on speakers, also because I can listen. It's far less fatiguing for my ears, for all ears actually, all I know, to work on speakers on fairly quiet volumes actually. And every master gets at least double checked on some pair of headphones. I personally use these a lot. These are the HT650 by Sennheiser. A great value for the budget. Headphone, I think it's like $300 or something, and it's really among the best I heard under 1,000. And if you really want something great, and if you especially if you're working exclusively on headphones, you need some damn good headphones, man. Of course you do, because as I said before, you will only be able to solve those problems that you can hear properly. And you will not only need great headphones, you will need a great headphone amplifier as well, because that is far too often missed by beginners, how important amps in general, but especially headphone amps are. I can tell you from my personal experience, great headphones for mastering purposes are the HEDD headphones, if you want to call it like that. Heinz Electrodynamic, I think this is a Berlin brand or something, a German one. Great headphones, or you might already know the Odyssey, Odyssey. It's AUDEZE. They do really great headphones as well. The LCD series. They're quite different ones in the range, but well, all of those really great mastering headphones, they start roughly from $1,000 or something. So it's quality material, but obviously it's not little money. But in the end, good speakers are, and plus good room acoustics that you necessarily need when working on speakers, for sure. That is a lot more money in the end. So compared to that. But if you don't want to start out with $1,000+ on your headphones, start with something like these. Choose open backs. That's really, really important from my point of perspective. I mean, closed headphones definitely do have their point, obviously, especially when working somewhere on site, or standing in front of a microphone, obviously, because otherwise you'd have your click bleed all over your vocal track. No one wants that. So, and for editing purposes and stuff like that. So, closed headphones definitely have their point, but not in mixing or mastering, because they are just, to make it simple and dumb, they are not linear. And if they are, there has to be done that much technically and maybe even digitally with the sound to make them sound or appear somewhat linear in behavior, that they will not be very transparent. So choose open backs and maybe not your $30 one from Behringer or whatever you have. Choose some very good headphones. And the same that I said about speakers is, I think, even more important when it comes to headphones. Get used to them, and if you don't like them, change them. You can sometimes mod them, but just that only really makes sense if you like the bass of it. What I want to say is every ear on this earth is different. Even my two ears are different, right? And you might notice that yours are too. Just as we have a right and a left hand, and some left-handers can't use their right properly, and the other way around. So the same is true to your legs, to your ears, to your nostrils. You know what I mean? So not even your two ears are the same, and your taste of hearing is not the same as anyone else's is. So trust your guts, trust your opinion, and listen a lot. A major, no matter if it comes to headphones or speakers, most beginners in some point of their beginning studio career, home studio career, whatever, make the huge mistake to not listen to already produced professional releases on their working system, on their DAW, whatever they have in their studio. That's a big problem, because if you use your, I don't know, Bose, Hi-Fi, Teufel, whatever you have, soundbar, you name it, to listen to music, and obviously most of you do, because we all are music listeners and music lovers. So if you listen to music you love and you like on completely different, in completely different acoustic spaces and completely different monitoring setups, you are completely used and concentrated on that behavior. You will not be able to trust your ear when working in a completely different environment. So that is another point why talking to producers and recording engineers, they might step from studio to studio and even record on location. All right. So if that is like a hut in the Alps, I don't know, or if it's a church or a scoring stage or some studio they've never been before, it doesn't really matter. Of course, obviously, you get to know the acoustics better and better the more often you have worked at one specific place, but I don't want to get into that now. But there it is about taste and about creative production techniques, right? So you're creating, and in mixing, and even more so in mastering, it is super crucial to have that really final reference point. Some mastering engineers even do the Bobcat's K-meter thing, where they have that is very important in film music and in film mixing. I mean, on those cinema mixers and so on. But some music engineers do this as well, that they have fixed reference levels in their rooms, so they really know, okay, if that is loud, if I perceive that as loud, it is precisely, I'd say, whatever, 85 dB SPL or whatever. So they really measure their room, and they only have presets on their monitor controllers to switch between those. I personally don't do that. I don't think that it is necessary, but I usually tend to go back to 2 or let's say 3 different or very similar points on my monitor controller as well. So it really does make sense to have not just different listening levels. We'll get to that later. We're talking about Fletcher-Munson and so on, so psychoacoustics. It is crucial that you really know how something is perceived on your specific point. So listen, and after that, if you feel comfortable, start with your master, and lifelong you will get better with each repetition, obviously, like in almost every task you do. Okay, let's talk speakers. As I said, use whatever you like, but don't fool yourself. You will not be able to have professional mastering results on 200 box speakers. Okay? That is just, might hurt someone out there, but it's just the truth. So you might need some quality speakers. That does not mean that you can't train and yourself and can't learn on cheaper speakers, or that you're not able to produce on them. Not at all. You can produce on Logitech 30 box speakers, no problem at all. But when it comes to mastering, because of what I said earlier, all the quality control assurance and so on, you really need a good pair of speakers and some good amps. The easiest way usually is to get, and most people nowadays do, just get some powered monitors with built-in amps, so you don't have to think about that anymore. But if you are interested in speakers and amps and so on and so forth, you will probably tend to go towards passive speakers and extra boxes that drive those, as you have more possibility to tweak the sound to your liking, to your very personal liking. Well, subwoofers. Let's talk for subwoofers. The beginners just ask sometimes, well, do I need a subwoofer or no? That's seems a little too easy actually, because it's not a yes or no. First of all, what I say to beginners usually is, keep in mind that if you buy a subwoofer, it usually also has a, it needs, if it's not built in, you use a separate one, but you will definitely need some kind of crossover network, you know. So, which is basically 2 filters splitting the bass from the mids, you know. So, they can share the power between the mid speakers and the subwoofers or LFE or whatever. So that bass management is crucial, and the filter network, as every EQ and filter, has its own sound. So make bloody sure when it comes to mastering, if you want a good listening room, that those crossovers are darn good. And again, to your liking, and of course measured and specifically tuned to your specific room and subwoofer system and so on. Usually a subwoofer, one is generally speaking enough, but, and that's a big but, that means especially cheaper or slightly defective subs usually distort, and that might not be like a clipping your 808 distortion, that is just a little sparkle of overtones, And the thing is, usually you'd use, even when we're working on stereo, you'll have something like a 2.1 setup. Many people call it like that, and that means you have one sub and two stereo speakers, and that means the sub is basically mono, which is you can't really call that a precise representation of your stereo material. Can you? Because if you have a stereo mix with stereo bass, and if you listen to that on your room, you will not have stereo bass, obviously, because there's just one subwoofer, right? That is usually not such a big problem, because you can't really tell the direction of low frequencies. That's just psychoacoustics. We will not get into that, but just believe me at this point, okay? You can't really tell from which direction low frequencies are coming. Let's say below 100 or 80 hertz or something like that. But you don't have a there is a limit of steepness that you can have with your filter, and the steeper it gets, the better you can separate those two frequency bands, obviously. But the steeper it gets, the more sound you get from it, and the more likewise you get some distortion, I'd say. And also there's the issue of sub and mids having a phase issue in some way or another. That might mean your sub is also, that's more or less a ball coming out from there. What I mean by that is good subwoofers tend to have something like a cardioid characteristics. Like you can think of it like a microphone the other way around as a speaker. Okay, so there's not much coming out from the back, but most subs are, as they are meant for low frequency material, they usually go into all directions at once. So when there's a wall coming, right, and if that wall is too thick or too reflective, it will your low frequency will bounce back in some way or another, and that might have a weird interaction with your weird correlation with your, or interference with your with the sound coming out from your main monitors. So be careful with subs, I usually say. And if you want a really precise and a stereo representation, I'd say it might be worth, I don't say necessarily you need that, but it might be worth thinking about stereo subs, or just many good speaker brands, they offer some subs that are specifically tuned to that specific speaker, and many you can even tweak your crossover frequency and so on. And think about that. Think about all those things, and think about that you, if you think about buying a sub, the case probably is that you have the feeling, if it's your gut or your brain telling you that, but you have the feeling that there's not enough bass energy in your room, and that may have some other, lead you to some other issues, especially room acoustics wise, obviously. And more energy, putting a speaker into there, another speaker, especially for the low frequency, means more energy in your room, means automatically more or less you will have to treat your room better for the bass area, and more bass traps, maybe even active ones, maybe some resonators or whatever you have in your room. So think about that. The worse your room, the smaller your budget, the lesser senseful it gets, from my personal opinion, to invest into a sub. But that's just my 2 cents, and there are many cases where it really does make sense to have a good sub in there. But make it a good one, okay? Kesti asks, to how many finished tracks from other artists should I listen to per day in my studio? As many as you like. I usually start my my day with a listening session, actually. Some might argue this has to be the perfect CD quality or high resolution, I don't know, file. That, well, it certainly makes a difference, obviously, but I usually just use like the Spotify app or whatever and put that on the best quality available, because of course I do, not always to be honest, but in most cases I will hear in a blind test which is the 24-bit high res file and which is the 320 kbit file. But that's not the point I'm talking about. It doesn't mean I need every single detail in the music I listen to tune my ears to. That's not the point in my opinion. The case is I want to tune my ear into a certain frequency and balancing and room leveling and so on, and some stereo field that makes sense, that is professional, that seems balanced, So don't make it a 128 kbit, but use the best quality of whatever streaming service you have, and that might be sufficient. So I usually start my day with that. And please don't do it on high volumes. That might be a lot of fun, but it will fatigue your ears after a very short period, especially if you like and use those more or less shrill tweeters. Just keep it low, okay? Keep the volume low so you can work for more than an hour in a row. But I don't want to tell you how many tracks. Usually you'd start your day with reading emails and stuff like that to begin with, so why not use that time, okay? How about three-way monitors? Livelit asks. I don't have much to say about three-way monitors, but I already talked about crossover networks. Well, those filters that's dividing your frequency spectrum to give it to different kinds of speakers or whatever, or ways, as you say. All those have a sound, okay? So generally speaking, theoretically, one big speaker that does all would be perfect because there's no crossover network. Oh, no, that's not the case either, because in whatever speaker technology you use, you usually have a wobbling membrane, right? I'm not talking about plasma speakers here. You usually have a wobbly membrane in one form or another. And on that membrane, if you put low frequency and high frequency and mid frequencies on there, it's not just that they all come together and you need enough headroom to do that all in one membrane, basically, but they also interact with each other, and the way they do, you can have some it distorts, all right? It distorts your mids if you put too much bass on your speaker and so on and so forth. And practically speaking, or technically speaking, physically speaking, there's always some kind of limitation. So usually two-way is good, three-way is good, as long as they are designed properly. And that is another good argument for using a sub, again, to have less interference distortion on the speaker itself, okay? So if it's a good one, if you like it, three-way monitors, fine thing. Okay. Let's get back to the requirements. We talked a lot about speakers and room acoustics, but really it is the most crucial part. The rest is actually, most of it is optional. As I said, talking about the engineer himself or herself, you need confidence and experience. And experience makes you grow. Well, you can't just get experience by doing something, right? So just start and do and do and do and compare and compare and compare and listen. Okay, I can't stress that enough. And with that, confidence will come. There's some phenomena, like psychological phenomena, that beginners that start to know the first one or two very basics of whatever they started with, they feel super confident because they don't already get the point, or get the vast variety of things that are to know about this specific topic. So if you do engineering, for example, or whatever in your life, and if you've doing it for just a couple of weeks or months or maybe up to a year, and you feel super confident about being super professional in mastering, you are probably not. Sorry. But keep on practicing, keep on listening, keep on comparing, and keep on reading. Yeah, I already talked about listening levels. That comes with experience as well. All those methods you can, whatever you listen to yourself and listen to your ears, not just for the music, and listen to your gut feel and your personal feeling. I personally, I get some strange. I can't really describe it. It's undescribable actually. But when my ears are starting to fatigue, I physically feel that. I don't hear it yet, but I physically feel that, and I really know. Okay, this is some kind of ear stress sign my body sends to me. So it's good for my health and it's good for the product. And my job is to know that and to take the right precautions. And that is mainly don't listen too loudly. Okay, just don't do it. Mix won't get better. It will sound better, but not your product in the end. Okay, so just some moderate level is all right, and of course, obviously, turn it down in the middle to see if the vocal still sticks out, if you can hear the kick drum and so on, and then pull it off for a short period of time. And whatever loud means to you, that's very personal, and it has a lot to do with not just experience and your personal liking, but also with your room and your speakers as well. So there are speakers where I can listen to loudly on, or rooms that I can listen loudly in for a longer period of time than others. So generally speaking, great speakers for mastering and great rooms, and also the converters and amps, obviously. Great setup means usually you can listen in that space for a longer time without louder volumes before getting ear sick or fatigue. Yeah. If it helps you, especially for beginners, or if you don't have the best setup ever, because I know that it's expensive and most people are searching half a life for the right, not just the money, but for the right setup for their personal liking. So use reference speakers. The ones you know are the best. Don't listen to anyone who tells you you need that specific whatever brand to listen to your to reference on, right? Use what you use usually. If you are driving a lot around in your car, most people on the planet Earth do, which is another problem maybe. But if you're driving around with your car a lot and you listen to music all that time, you probably know that specific system very, very well. It don't necessarily have to be a good system, but you know it very well. So check your masters and mixes there. Car test. That's where it comes from, right? If you don't ever drive cars, or if you don't ever listen to music in cars, some people like to turn their radio off when driving. So what's the point of it? You can't really you can't really tell anything by it. I mean, why not? Listen to your mixes and masters in your car, but if you don't know the system in your car, what's the point of it? Use your headphones you usually use for music. Look, use your laptop, your iPhone, your TV, or whatever, okay? Use whatever speakers you usually listen to double check your mixes as well. Okay, I already mentioned converters. Okay. Why are converters important? Basically, converters, they are usually in those audio interface boxes, and professionals tend to split that up into multiple devices that has multiple benefits, but money is not the benefit. Well, we have audio to analog to digital audio converters, ADCs. Those are used for recording music, where you plug your I don't know, instrument in or whatever. After maybe preamping it, but we also have to record music or material if we want to do anything outside of the box. Usually nowadays you'd get your mixes for mastering in a digital file format, right? Like WAV file or AIF or whatever. And if you want to use your analog compressor or whatever, you will have to get back through a ADC. And ADCs are crucial in the final results. There are different tastes in converters in general, ADCs and DACs, which is the digital analog, the other way around, so to say. There are many devices which do both. Most of them actually do both at the same time. They can go out and in to the box. In case you want to use some kind of outboard equipment in mastering or in mixing as well, you will have to think about those converters and about the quality and the channel count of those converters. So think about that and compare them. Maybe the more expensive ones are not necessarily the ones that color the material the way you like. I don't want to stress this point that much because it gets technical really fast, but trust me, there are differences. But they are compared to differences of various equalizers or compressor plugins or whatever. They are super minor. So if you can't really tell a difference between a VCA compressor or Varimu compressor yet, don't think about converters at all, because the chances are you won't really hear a difference at all if it's not volume. Okay. But converters are important. And if you work exclusively in the box, which is my focus today, obviously you have the DAC, right? The digital analog audio converter. And it doesn't directly affect your product that you bounce out, because that doesn't go through the DAC, right? It stays in the box, but it affects what you hear. Again, crucial, okay? Even more crucial is if you're using headphones, especially when only mastering on headphones, which I don't recommend, by the way, but some people do it. The headphone amp, so crucial. Those can get quite expensive quite fast. Reasons are, it's an amp, okay? Amplifiers are completely analog devices, and if they have to do their job well, it's a lot of very high quality components involved, and it's basically the components, not so much the brand and so on. It's purely the good analog components that going into that makes such products expensive. Of course, the schematic as well. So the design. Why are headphone amps even more different in quality and sound than other amplifiers? Well, it's what they have to drive. Okay, they have a really great load on the other side usually, and they have a great variety of loads. What I mean by that is some headphone brands release one and the same headphones with different ohms. Okay, this is the so-called impedance, the electrical impedance, the frequency dependent resistance and so on, and it's not ideal at all that any kind of amplifier has a very wide range of different impedances loading it, okay, that it has to drive. You will have completely different behavior from the amp, and completely different volumes, especially when plugging in different kinds of headphones, okay? So keep that in mind, because headphones, these little in-ear things, they start from, I don't know, 5-6 ohms or something, and professional studio headphones like these, they go up to 400 or 500 ohms. There are even some that have thousands and more. So it's a huge range of different impedances, and might even be the case that you have a pair of headphones that works great with your specific headphone amp, and your friend comes over with his own favorite pair of headphones, plugs it in, and it sounds like crap. Okay? Think about that. Headphone amps, crucial. In case you want to listen on headphones. And please, of course, working on the road and so on, editing or composing, or none of that matters. You can use your onboard sound card maybe, and your onboard headphone jack in your laptop or whatever you have, or your simple audio interface. But if you want to have an professional mastering setup, think about a great headphone amp. It really makes a huge difference in what you can hear and whatnot. Yeah. And you also need some kind of patch bay or routing matrix in case. Let me show you one pic. Oh, this is actually not opening. Okay. Screw it. You can, there are some hardware devices like the SPL Master Bay. I would have showed you, but there are some other devices as well, great ones. There's no recommendation for a specific product here, but in case you're working with some analog or digital hardware, whatever, you might need some kind of patch bay. And in mastering, you can do it, and it works great if you have a high quality and very good, well soldered and well manufactured TD phone or whatever patch bay you have. But in mastering, it might be a better solution to have a digitally controlled hardware which is specifically designed to do that, relay based usually. So there are relays in it that really swap the channels. Okay, we're running slightly in over time. We'll talk a little bit about headphones real quick. But first, here are 2 further questions. Let me see. Are we going to be able to watch this after the stream ends as a replay? Yes, I think so. This usually stays on YouTube. What happens on YouTube stays on YouTube. This is just the first hour that will end soon now. This will be on YouTube. Will stay on YouTube. And after the break, will be on the online campus. That part, the second and third hour, will also be available as a replay, but exclusively for students of the HOFA-College. But yes, this is all captured. Caesar asked, headphone 80 ohm is for mix or to listen when we sing? It can be both. Sure, why not? 80 ohm is comparatively low impedance. That means more or less high output volume. We're talking about dynamic headphones here, by the way. There are other formats, types of headphones as well where it's not that easy, but most are dynamic, so we stick to those. We're talking about dynamic headphones, usually we're talking about something like the DT770 by Biodynamic or something like that. One pair of headphones I personally dislike a lot. The Biodynamic has great headphones, but that is for my personal hearing. That's not one of the good ones. But you will have a great if you buy 3 of them and you compare the 80 to the what are the others, 250 or whatever. I think there are three different ones. The lower ohms will be louder and less hi-fi, less high fidelity, so a little more distortion, a little more less resolution, so to say. Okay, um, if you can mix on them, it's great. If those are the ones you have, mix on them, work on them. If you have better ones you like better, use those. When singing, when recording, when producing, it doesn't matter. Okay, when it comes to mixing, it matters a little more, and when it comes to mastering, it matters the most that you have high quality components. As I said before, use open backs ones, and usually the higher quality ones would have more than 80 ohms. But that's just generally speaking, because it obviously depends on the specific headphone. Okay, but you can, if it works for you, it works. Okay. One last thing about headphones before we go into the break. There are things, little helping tools, correction tools like SonarWorks, for example, or simpler tools that can. There are actually also complex ones that can help you make your headphones sound a little bit like loudspeakers and behave a little bit like loudspeakers. In case you want that, some people or many people actually say, "Oh man, I really don't feel the music on my headphones. It's so weird having this axis going through my head and so on." I personally do like that. That is mainly a point why I grab headphones and not my speakers, but I'm sitting at the studio usually, and I have the option to choose both. And there are techniques to work on headphones and listen on a somewhat speaker-like situation on the go or in your living room or whatever. For example, the one that I actually like a lot is the SPL crossfeed knob. They have on their Phonitos, which are really great headphone amps, by the way. They have on the smaller ones, it's just a one knob solution. On the bigger, better ones, they have multiple knobs, and you can basically crossfeed the left to the right channel and the other way around. And you do that in a specific manner, so it appears as if you were listening to some speakers which are right in front of you. That is a purely analog solution as far as I'm concerned. So. In case that's important for you, but they do sound good, I think. There are also plugins like the Goodhertz Can Opener, for example. I've used that once, didn't like it, threw it away, but maybe I just wasn't used to it. Some people do actually like it a lot. I know that for sure. And of course, there's another solution, virtual mix rooms, I'd say. I'd call them. One popular one is the Waves NX, it's called. This is very handy. This comes in handy if you have to mix or master 5.1 or surround or something like that, and you only have two speakers. What are we going to do with that? So here you go. It's a binauralization plugin, but I wouldn't recommend using any kind of binaural at all on your purely on your monitoring when doing mastering, because you can't really be sure what part of the coloration is your binauralization tool and what is actually in the material you're working on. And obviously, if you have a binaural mix, a purely binaural mix, and that is to be mastered, use your headphones and master it. Obviously, we'll come to that later, maybe. But I wouldn't recommend using something like virtual mix rooms, binauralization tools when mastering. Of course, if you don't have any other option, sometimes it's better than nothing, but try to avoid that. Same is true for those heavily EQing ones like SonarWorks. I sometimes, from time to time, I do use it, SonarWorks, but I use it very rarely and very sparely, and never on 100%. Okay, usually like 30 something. But trust your guts, and if it works for you, it works for you. I won't tell you what to do. SonarWorks is helpful. And there are some others, I think, but SonarWorks is the most, the biggest one. It is helpful, especially when mixing in bad environments, but when it comes to mastering, better don't do it, okay? You need a good reference setup, so you really know what you're working on. And one last question here by Caesar. Speakers KRK and subwoofer KRK is good for producing mix and master? Question mark. KRK are alright. The bigger ones, I think the VXTs, those are quite good. The Rocket ones, the cheaper ones, so you can certainly you hear the price difference, I'd say. KRK, I think they have higher grade ones that I haven't listened to yet, but generally speaking, I wouldn't say KRK is one of the big brand for mastering purposes. You more often than not, you would see more hi-fi brands like Amphion or Bowers and Wilkins, if that is your thing, or I work a lot on guidelines, which I like a lot, and yeah, things like that. All those KS Digital, they are great as well. But again, if it works for you, it works for you. And after all, it's also a question of budget, right? And usually those KRK setups are a little cheaper than going for some ATC or PMC or guideline solution or whatnot. Okay. A little over time, but I think we're going to have a break now. It's not half an hour, it's just quarter an hour, but that's all right for me. I hope for you too. Go grab some coffee, some water, some cigarette, or have a little meditation, whatever your thing is. And we'll be back at in quarter an hour, 15 minutes, back on the online campus. Head over to oc.hofa-college.com, log into your account, click on live stream, and see you there in 15. All right? Peace.